Okay, this is John Pingel with the Sales Excellence Institute here at the Bauer College of Business. I'm the Director of Corporate Relations for SEI. SEI is one of the largest and most well-known sales institutes in the world when it comes to academic research and undergraduate training on sales and sales leadership. For more information about the Sales Excellence Institute, please visit our website. It's Bauer, BAUER.UH.edu/SEI. Today I have with me Karl Herman. He's our Director of Executive Education, and he is also a professor of our undergraduate program within the Advanced Professional Selling class, as well as our Key Account Selling class. And he's also, he teaches several MBA classes on sales and sales leadership. Karl has over 30 years experience in high tech, in sales and sales leadership. He has worked with several companies in this industry, from Siebel to Oracle, Unisys, KPMG, and worked for Halliburton's Landmark Graphics division as the Vice President of Sales. So Karl, thanks for joining me today. I want to talk to you a little bit about CRM adoption. This is a topic that a lot of our partners and the organizations that we work with from a research standpoint, but also in executive education, this is a topic of concern for a lot of them, right?
Right. Thanks for having me, John. Yes, CRM adoption is still a problem. 20 years after we thought it wouldn't be a problem anymore. I just returned from a large technology conference for a CRM provider, and talked to hundreds of companies as I do every year, and many at this conference. None of them are 100% happy with their CRM deployment. Every one of them feels like it did not deliver the results that they were expecting.
Have you ever come across a company that feels like what they're doing is perfect with CRM?
No, I've never run across a company who I've run across companies who have had successful CRM deployments. They in that they can point to sales benefits that they've achieved, but I've never talked to a company that felt like overall the CRM deployment achieved the ROI that they expected, or the ROI that they used to justify the expenditure in the first place. And I've never run across a company that had long-term successful CRM deployment.
You know, so we just finished doing an hour-long webinar for our partners on CRM adoption, and you kind of answered the question of why your statement is true. And so kind of explain to me what CRM is and what it is not.
Now, people, if you look at definitions from the academic community, or companies like Gartner or Forrester, companies like that specialize in this kind of thing, you will not see, what you will see is CRM is a strategy. It's not a piece of technology.
Yeah, that's really important. Say that again, because that struck me as very
CRM
important.
is a business strategy.
Right.
I want to focus on being customer-centric and managing my customers. And I'm going to use processes, people, and technology to do that, but it's a strategy.
Not a technology.
Not a technology.
Why do you think so many companies that we work with treat it like a technology?
Because it's seen that way as most organizations, and most organizations are used to tackling problems with technology.
Right.
Today. Whether it's financial reporting, or whether it's marketing through the web, they tackle it with technology. And tackling customer management in part with technology is absolutely appropriate. But thinking about customer management as technology is inappropriate, and it will send you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you want to use technology as a part of the overall CRM strategy.
Right.
As you were explaining this in the webinar, it got me thinking, like, Do you think it's because of who is making the decision on implementing CRM technology in the company that it turns into a technology strategy instead of a CRM strategy?
Yeah, I think it's not who necessarily makes the decision, but it's often who the project is handed over to.
So explain.
So it often, I rarely see a situation where CRM the CRM decision was made 100% by the information technology group or an outside consultant. Even the less experienced company will include sales professionals, sales executives, service professionals, and service executives from their organization in a CRM decision. But once that, and in many cases, it's led by the senior sales executive or the senior marketing and sales executive. But once the decision is made, companies tend to say, okay, information technology, go make it work.
Right.
And that's a prescription for failure. Even involving the sales organization in that deployment, if you have information technology as the lead, it's highly unlikely it's going to work. And I would say, even though I respect consulting organizations a lot, handing it over to a consulting organization is going to create the same reality. Handing over the leadership of the project.
So when you think about who should be in charge of a CRM strategy, if you were to rank them, I mean, is it the sales organization, then ops, then IT? Like, how would you put
sales organization? The top of the sales organization, whether that's the senior VP of sales, whether it's the VP of sales and marketing, whether it's the chief revenue officer, that's the person that needs to be responsible and on the hook for a successful deployment.
Where do you think the biggest obstacles in building the right team with the right authorities in place, if sales is running it, having the most responsibility over the initiative of building the CRM strategy? Where do you think organizations would struggle the most in building buy-in? Like, where is the hiccup usually in IT saying, oh, this program is too complex, or is it from accounting saying, look, we don't have the money to implement this kind of? Where do you think the biggest obstacles come?
So it's a really good question. We're getting into areas that weren't in the webinar, but it's a very interesting question. So I think there's two major areas of malfunction, if you would, in putting these projects together. One is IT. To the extent that IT is part of the decision-making process for the deployment,
right,
they're going to want to customize. They're going to want to make significant changes to the functionality. They're going to want to make it ideal for the company, and that's wrong.
Right.
Most CRM systems today, whether they're from the big players, the top 3, the top 4, or whether it's from smaller players, have tremendous functionality in them.
Right.
They do more, and they do more efficiently in terms of sales processes than your organization does. So modifying those things that are already pretty well designed to fit the way you currently do sales is generally a mistake.
Right.
And IT wants to do that because they want to be completely responsive to the community.
Right.
So that's a mistake. The other major mistake is not getting enough involvement and buy-in from the frontline sales organization.
Yep.
Okay. Those people have to. Those leaders, floor leaders, sponsors, the best salespeople, in each role within the sales organization need to be included in from day one, as does every level between them and that senior sales officer need to be part of the team.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about. I've got some questions on perceived usefulness and things like that I think would apply to frontline salespeople here in a minute. You mentioned in the webinar you talked about the five financial wins of CRM, and it was a pretty complicated graph. But give me an overview of what you see as the 5 financial wins.
Well, and there's no magic about 5,
right,
and they're not necessarily the same from one organization to another. 5's a good number, though, and I would say that anyone who's deploying a CRM system should look for 5 wins are 3 wins.
Sure.
So let me give you some examples that you absolutely should expect from a well done CRM deployment. You should expect that every rep can manage more sales opportunities than they were managing without CRM. So you should see that number go up.
Right.
The win rate should go up. Salespeople should be able to win more deals because they have better information about the customer, about the internal organization. They have better collaboration. Everybody's on the same page. The win rate should go up. You should see bigger deals, more deals, higher win rate, bigger deals. Cross-selling and upselling, expanding the size of deals should be a result of more information about the customer, about the customer's needs, and everyone being on the same page. In today's world, many sales, at any level of complexity, we sell in teams, not individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And having everybody on the team in the same page and having everybody's knowledge about the opportunity and the customer in the same page is of tremendous value in winning and growing deals.
Right.
So that's three areas right there, and that's the revenue side of things. Win rate, more opportunities per rep, bigger opportunities.
Right.
Then on the cost side, there's always a couple of things you can look for too, and these are important. When I walk into my territory, if I've got a good CRM system deployed and I'm a new rep, I should come up to speed much faster.
Right.
I should know my customers better, so the ramp-up time for performance should be much greater.
Because they have the history of the relationship with an account.
Yep.
In an easy-to-find location.
Yeah. And a good CRM system should just make my administrative job easier, right? I should be able to spend more time selling and less time administrating, less time doing menial manual stuff if I have a good CRM system.
That also applies to the manager as well, right?
Absolutely.
From managing the sales force.
And not just, yes, I think we should primarily talk about the sales manager, but it should be every manager.
Right.
Every manager that touches a customer. A significant number of our organizations that we deal with, oil and gas service companies, information technology companies, have very significant service organizations.
Right.
They profit just as much from this time-saving potential of a CRM application as the sales manager.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You gave a really good example. We don't want to be too anecdotal here. You gave a really good example of a bank that we had done some research for that they saw significant improvements. Touch on that really quick.
Yeah, I will say this wasn't research we did. This was a published.
Right. I'm sorry.
But yeah, there was a very large bank that had an opportunity that they were going to tackle this CRM deployment right. And they were going to have a control group where they didn't deploy CRM.
Right.
And they were going to have a group of branches where they did deploy CRM. So so there were 20 branches in the control group, 20 branches in the CRM group, in an area where the demographics were the same for all 40 branches, the socioeconomics were the same, no significant differences between the 40 branches.
Sure.
And they deployed the CRM system, and then 6 months later, they took a 12-month look at how those branches performed. And what they found was that in all the important metrics, the CRM branch outperformed the 20 CRM branches outperformed the 20 non-CRM branches. A couple of examples. The most blatant example, the most powerful example is home equity loans. Home equity loans for a retail bank are important,
right?
Money makers. And in the non-CRM branches, that went down almost 10% in the year that they were looking. In the CRM branches, they went up 16%.
Wow! So
you see what the benefit of having customer information of all kinds provides to those branch personnel.
Right.
Okay. their daily profitability was double in the CRM branches. The increase in daily profitability was double in the CRM branches
Right.
from the non-CRM branches. So just tremendous proof that CRM, when it's done right, can really work.
When the strategy itself is implemented
Right.
using good technology.
Right.
You've talked a lot about high performers and the adoption of a CRM strategy linking to their high performance, but you mentioned that there is this point of diminishing return. So we already know that if you're a high performer, more than likely you've adopted some kind of CRM strategy. But I'm really interested in this diminishing return aspect, that at some point too much activity is too much.
It's really an interesting topic, right? Because it's probably something you won't hear from Salesforce.com or Oracle.
Right.
The reality is, and we've measured this, and not I haven't measured it, but Dr. Ahern, who's our director of research,
Right.
and a couple of other people have done a number of studies in this area. And what they found is there's a point of diminishing return in sales use of technology. And so for high performers,
Mm-hmm.
increasing the use of technology to a point increases their performance, makes them more efficient, and allows them to sell more. But at some point it does go down. At some point they're just using technology for technology's sake, and it's taking too much time and not allowing them to sell.
Right.
The other interesting thing is that highly capable technology users increase their performance more and faster than average technology users, who still get a significant bump,
Right.
but especially compared to people who don't use it.
Right.
People that don't use technology do not perform as well as people who do.
Interesting.
And there's two reasons for that. One, technology makes people perform better.
Right.
CRM technology provides things that help you perform better. And the other is high performers look for ways to perform better.
Right.
Right? So they're going to say, if this technology will help me perform better, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good kind of segue into one of the things that you mentioned, and that's the what'd you call it? The potholes, the adoption potholes that people come into. And one of the first things you mentioned was perceived usefulness.
Yeah. So we used to think of adoption of any technology as really having two major components, and it is two major components, but there's others that are equally important: ease of use and usefulness.
Right.
And we've in the CRM space over the last 10 years, we've cracked the ease of use barrier. Systems today, because they're cloud-based, because of object-oriented programming, all kinds of technical reasons, they're easy to use.
Right.
That's not an issue. But the usefulness is still an issue, and salespeople will not use a system if it's not easy to use. They'll use it for what they're required to use it for.
Right.
So if I can't get commission credit unless I use Salesforce, my CRM system, to enter the information, then guess what? I'm going to use it.
But only enough to get the commission.
Only enough to get the commission.
Right.
And what we find is, if that's all they're using it for, the required functions, there's no sales uplift. There's no sales performance increase. There's some administrative benefit, but no sales benefit. So they have to believe useful to a salesperson only means one thing: helps them sell more.
And usefulness from salesperson to salesperson changes dramatically. It's a different definition for each salesperson, right?
Right.
Even within a single team.
Right.
So perceived usefulness is what you call it.
Perceived usefulness.
Each perception is different.
The definition is the degree to which a person believes that using a particular system would increase his or her performance. His or her performance. Not the organizations, not their teams, his or her performance.
So it's important at the highest level, as you're creating a strategy, that you understand what perception would be from the lowest level, right? From that frontline sales manager.
It's critical.
Now you talk a lot about the balance between perceived usefulness and system truthfulness. What is system truthfulness?
Yeah, let me mention the 4 other potholes, and then I'll go back.
Yeah, okay.
So ease of use and usefulness are 2 keys. The other 4 are peer usage.
Mm-hmm.
What do people you respect that are in your same role do? Use it or not use it. System truthfulness, how accurate is the data in the system?
Right.
Management commitment, and we'll talk more about that later. And system uniqueness.
Right.
Are there alternative systems I can use so I don't have to use this?
Sure.
Or that I have to use?
Right.
So those are the 6 potholes. System truthfulness is really a tough one.
Right.
The first time a salesperson tries to dial a phone number and it's the wrong number, or tries to contact somebody who's supposed to be in Bakersfield, California, but instead they're in Jakarta, Indonesia, and they can't find them, then they doubt the system. They lose trust in the system, and if that happens just a few times, a handful of times, they're not going to use it anymore. And why? Because it's costing them time instead of saving them time. So system truthfulness is absolutely critical. You could also call it system trustworthiness. Is absolutely critical to adoption, and it's very hard.
Right.
One of the things that's CRM systems are kind of unique. The quantity of information is not as important as the quality of information. The completeness of the information, which in a payable system or a receivable system or an order system, completeness is critical.
Right.
But in a CRM system, it's not critical. Completeness is not critical. Accuracy is critical.
And we had this question come up in the webinar, but how do you consult companies that have a large amount of data in an old system, whether it's an Oracle-based system or some custom CRM system that they created years ago, and now they're transitioning into Salesforce? What's the strategy there?
Well, the strategy number 1 is best you can determine how accurate the information you're bringing over is.
Right, and you'd given some multiple ways in which they could identify is it accurate or not.
Yeah.
What are some of those?
Well, most financial systems are accurate.
Sure.
And so if data in SAP systems, whether it's supply chain payables, same thing with Oracle financials, are probably accurate.
Right.
So most of that data can come over and should come over. But when you get into areas like the contact name, the contact phone number,
The role.
the role,
Right.
that data is generally not accurate even in financial systems. So assess the accuracy of your data, number 1, and then you're gonna have it's a balancing act. The more data you bring over that is accurate, the more useful the system is.
Right.
If I have order history for my account and my customer, that's helpful to me as a salesperson. But if that order history has inaccuracies in it, it's a pothole, and it's gonna turn me off. So it's a balancing act. I know companies that have done both. I know large Fortune 100 companies, 2 different ones. One who brought over almost no data, almost no historical data, because they were uncomfortable with the accuracy, and they thought that it wouldn't take long to build up data that was useful. And I know another one that spent an inordinate amount of time cleaning their data and then bringing it over. So both are reasonable. You just have to make a judgment.
Right. And then you talk a lot about that once, regardless of whether you bring over a lot of data or no data, there comes to a point where it's just on the salesperson or the people communicating with the customer to enter in accurate data.
Yeah. So creating an accurate database is critical. Has to be done. The more data you can bring into your implementation, the more useful the system is. But going forward, accuracy is the user's responsibility. And that primarily means the salesperson in a CRM system. When the salesperson sees inaccurate or incomplete data, they fix it. If it's an inaccurate phone number and they don't know the right phone number, they should delete it,
Right.
not leave it. But the same is true for every other user that touches the data. When the data is inaccurate, it's that person's responsibility to not leave that data, to not leave that record until they have either fixed it or gotten rid of it.
So do you think it's appropriate to tie some kind of compensation to entering correct data? Now you've always said, you pay them what is in Salesforce. Like if they're doing an order, it needs to be in Salesforce, and you can easily track that, and you can compensate the salesperson as your organization fits. But what about the accountability of entering the right contact roles and contacts? Like, should compensation be tied to that?
No, I don't think compensation should be tied to that. I think performance metrics can be tied to usage. So that's indirectly goes to things like career moves, salary increases, and things like that, because it's part of your performance evaluation, and that's perfectly okay. But I don't think that that sales compensation should be tied to that kind of metric. But management has to expect accurate data. That's the key.
Right.
And when it's not there, then number one, if the manager finds it's not there, it's their job to fix it too.
Right.
But it's also their job to tell the salesperson that they put some bad data in or their records are wrong.
Yeah, and you talked a lot about, and we haven't really hit it yet, but one of the potholes is management commitment.
Yeah.
And you did a great job of describing the difference between management commitment versus usage.
Yeah, management commitment often is thought of as the sponsoring email, the sponsoring letter,
Right.
the announcement on the internal website of this deployment of this new CRM application, and how absolutely committed management is to the successful deployment, and we expect everyone to use it, and it's going to be really helpful, and that's necessary, but it's completely insufficient if that's all that it is. The real key to management commitment is management use.
Yeah.
And management use means not using alternative systems, only using the new system. It means using the CRM system to have pipeline review, not using a PowerPoint or an Excel spreadsheet. It means using dashboards to manage with the dashboards. So if dashboards should identify missing data. Dashboards should identify opportunities that we need to coach on, that we need to talk about, that we need to strategize about. Management commitment, it means when you see something in Salesforce that is good, well, I see you had a great call last week on such and such an account, then you let them know that you read that in the system,
Right.
and you really are excited about that result. And when you know they went on a call and the call isn't logged in the system, it's just as important to say you didn't go on that call because it's not in the system. Why isn't it in the system?
Right.
Management commitment means using the system and not alternative systems. That's
It's
really
leading
important.
by example.
Leading
Get rid
by-
of the Excel sheets, get rid of the emails, use Chatter,
Right.
use the libraries, lead by example. And so it's important, it sounds like, to make sure at the highest level of the organization, as you're building the CRM strategy, that you're getting buy-in from that frontline management as much as you are the salesperson, right? The managers have to use customized reports, they have to use customized dashboards, they have to believe that it makes their job easier,
Yep.
and they can be more effective at leading their salespeople.
That's right. They have to at every level.
What advice would you give to a salesperson that is struggling using CRM, or they don't see the benefit? Like, how would you coach them?
Well, there's definitely a carrot and stick approach to getting usage. Salespeople that are not, if you hire one of our students in the Sales Excellence Institute, they're going to walk in expecting to use a CRM system,
Right.
and they're going to be disappointed if it's not there.
Right.
We see that all the time. But if you have salespeople in your organization and they haven't used CRM in the past, they're not going to use CRM, they haven't used it in the past, they have no experience with it, then you're going to have to use a carrot and a stick to get to the critical mass and the critical usage for people to like it. So you have to expect a certain number of, for example, we use activities. You have to, sales activities have a direct relationship to performance. So it's a very good thing to measure. And you expect a certain level of activities. It may not be the right measure for you, but it's the right measure for us. We expect those activities, and the activities didn't happen if they're not in Salesforce. The other thing that is really important is this concept of peer usage. It's important to identify as part of an implementation, and many companies do this. You're the good champions, the right champions. You need to identify salespeople that are leaders, and we've done studies on identifying within a network in an organization who are the people, the unknown people that people depend on.
Right.
And you need to get those people, and you need to make them leaders. You need to get them involved in the implementation, and they need to be the peer sponsors of the usage. That's really important too. Not sufficient in itself, but it's an important part. So you have to have carrots, right? You have to. We have this concept of give to get.
Mm-hmm.
For every field, at the very granular level, for every field that you ask a salesperson to give you in CRM, there has to be a direct get. So the simple example is, if you give me a mailing address, marketing won't ask you for a mailing address again. If you keep the status of your opportunity up to date and the dollar value of your opportunity up to date, I won't ask you for it. I won't ask you for a forecast or a pipeline review. I'll just pull it.
Right.
Okay. Those are gets that salespeople understand.
Yeah.
Because salespeople get asked all the time for information, and when you tell them you're not going to ask them for that anymore, they get that.
Right.
So those are carrots. Sticks are, I expect X number of activities, and I expect them to be entered. By and large, those sticks should not be directly related to adoption. They should be directly related to sales performance.
Right.
But they indicate adoption.
Yeah, I think that's great. So, Karl, I mean, the overall theme here is CRM is not a technology. Customer relationship management is a strategy that requires a lot of thought and adoption and integration. It needs to be a part of the daily conversation from top to bottom up.
Yeah,
right?
let me give you one quick example of why it's a strategy and not a technology. Mm-hmm. That bank that we were talking about earlier,
right?
They determined through a lot of analysis that their magic number was 6. That meant that if their customer had 6 of their products, the customer was not going to leave. Significantly more left with 5 products than 6.
Yep.
If they had 6 products, they were a long-term customer.
Right.
So they put a strategy in place to cross-sell products. Well, that's a business strategy.
Right.
To get close to the customer, to cross-sell products, to know what the customer needed. One of the results of that strategy was a CRM. And it worked. Home equity loans were went up 25% more in 1 year when they had CRM than when they didn't have CRM. So their strategy worked.
Karl, I appreciate your time today. Again, for more information about the Sales Excellence Institute, topics like CRM adoption, selling innovation, sales process, sales leadership issues, please find us at Bauer, BAUER.UH.edu and /SEI. And again, thank you for listening. Thank you, Karl.
Thank you, John.